it is quite unfortunate that inflation has actually come to stay with us, and government is actually involved actively to curb down the level of inflation in the Nigeria. And unfortunately, too, this problem is a persistent problem all over the world. It is not peculiar or persistence to Nigeria alone, but it is a universal phenomenon now. And every part of the world now is experiencing the harsh reality of inflation. So Nigeria is not the only country that is actually affected by inflation. And unfortunately, inflation has a negative trend as well. That is, if a country is actually experiencing inflation, there are some certain characteristics or features that will characterize such a country. And that's why governments all over the world is trying as much as possible to reduce the level of inflation in their countries all over. So inflation is persistent in our country, and it has come to stay, because if you look at the history of Nigerian economic system, right from the period of the 60s, 70s, 80s, and the rest of them, if inflation has been crawling in gradually and gradually and gradually. But now in 2024 now, this is the period we are actually feeling the heat, the real heat of inflation, based on household consumptions and other factors. So inflation has come to stay with us, and that is why as citizens, as Nigerians, and as individuals all over the world, we need to guide ourselves properly, and also look at avenues or ways by which inflation is going to favor us. Now you ask me this question: what are the implications of inflation? One of them is that people will run out of money, because at this period of inflation, money does not have a value. So in a period of inflation, people will run out of money because money does not have value at this particular period of time. So if you can imagine, if you have some amount of money with you, by the time you buy one or two things, you discover that your money is gone. A lot of families are complaining now. The typical of rice now, beans is an expensive commodities now that even an average man cannot consume it again. Well, some of us has eaten beans, it's good. So it's a staple food that people cannot even consume again, because it's very, very expensive, very, very expensive now. What about rice? What about gari or cassava and all those things that an average man is actually eating? They are very, very expensive at this period of time. So people are running out of money, and this is what is the implication of inflation. Number two, interest rate is going to be higher. In fact, this is actually biting on everybody in Nigeria now, because the interest rate is actually increased. Right now, last time I did my video, it was about 24 point something percent. So if you are going to borrow money from a bank now, for example, out of 100%, you'll be paying about 25% of that money. That is a huge amount of money. So inflation has led to high interest rates. And the reason why government has actually introduced high interest rate is to actually, curb and reduce the level of inflation in the country. So interest rate is always high in a period of inflation. Then number three is that it will slow down the economy, making it very difficult for people to actually get jobs. In fact, right now in Nigeria, the level of employment is very, very, very high. Unemployment is at the high side in Nigeria now. Not only in Nigeria, but other parts of the world. So in the period of inflation, it's clear that companies we have to downsize, and companies that cannot cope, we have to fold up. So a lot of companies have actually folded up, most especially sole proprietorship businesses or one-man businesses that could not cope because of the harsh economic reality. Most of them have actually closed down. So one of them is that people will find it difficult to get jobs in the period of inflation, because a lot of companies are going to fold up. A lot of companies might not be able to cope. They might have to downsize their staff strength to be able to cope with the harsh economic reality. Number four is that there will be high prices of goods and their services. In fact, this is actually what is affecting most households now. A lot of families cannot eat 3 square meals, and they cannot eat what I call a balanced diet. Just eat whatever that comes your way, because it is very expensive out there to feed yourself and your family. And that is why, if you are a family household now, you need to buckle up. I could remember when I did my video about 3 or 4 months ago, I was talking about this implication of inflation, that people should prepare themselves. And some people were actually not happy with me because they felt that I was trying to be negative. They felt I was trying to be pessimistic. They felt I was trying to, look at the country on a negative perspective. But I knew what I was talking about, because I took my perspective and my lecture on the issue of tax in the customs service. And look at the harsh reality now. This is what has come to stay with us. So you need to prepare yourself, you need to guide yourself in this level of inflation. So presently now, inflation stands at 33.69% in Nigeria, which is not a good run for us. 33.69% in Nigeria, which is not what? A good one for this country. So if inflation is standing at 38.69%, that is 33.69%, oh God, a lot of people might find it difficult to survive in this economic system. That is capitalism for you. So a lot of people are complaining bitterly about this. In fact, even the Nigerian Labour Congress talked about the government increasing the salary, and a lot, even there are backlogs of salaries that are owed civil servants by each state of the federation, that has not been paid for the past 2-3 years to most of these civil servants. And they are talking about what? Increment again. And the governors are saying that they cannot be able to afford to pay this huge amount of money. It is not huge per se, because if you consider the level of inflation in the country, you will discover that even the money they are actually demanding for is not even enough at the end of the day, considering the high cost of feeding, considering the high cost of transportation, medical, and other forms of things in the economic system that you have to run as a family household. So people are complaining bitterly. People are frustrated. People are, they have given up. They are because of the ugly situation in the country. So government needs to come up and do something to remedy the situation, because a lot of people are feeling the negative or harsh effect of inflation. It should be noted that inflation is getting down to a lower rate, despite all the effort put into by the government. Some time ago, the naira was going down compared to the dollar, and later on, the naira actually gained strength in relation to the dollar, and it has been floating and floating. Today it will come down, tomorrow it will go higher. So the economic system is not stable in itself. So something drastic must be done. So inflation is bad, if you ask me. It is not a good thing. But on the other hand too, whether the inflationary trend is bad or negative, we must also look it from a different perspective as well, because we cannot afford to be relying on negative news every time. Household not being able to fund themselves, household not being able to provide basic facilities for themselves or basic needs for themselves, and other negative effects of inflation. So inflation is bad, if you must ask me. But if we actually look deep, there's also a blessing behind it. And why do I say this? You see, it depends on the perspective you are looking at inflation. If you are looking at it from the perspective of a layman to an average layman on the streets, inflation is, perplexing, is suicidal, it is ugly, it is creating, a holistic negative perspective on the country's economy. It is bringing down the standard of living of the people. It is creating unemployment. It is creating devaluation of the money, or the money does not have any value. It is slowing down the economy. It is making people to run out of money and the rest of them. So if you are looking at it from the perspective of a layman, that is a layman's perspective of inflation. But if you are looking at it from the aspect or the perspective of someone that is actually financially educated, then you are going to see the positive effect of what of inflation. So despite the fact that inflation is actually what negative, is creating a negative trend in the country, it also has its own positive impact, most especially if you are financially educated. And if you remember, I've been talking about financial education all this while, that you need financial education for you to be able to survive in a capitalist economy. That is capitalism for you. One of the characteristics of capitalism is inflation, because capitalism will create a gap, more and more gap between the rich and the poor. So it now depends on the class you want to actually belong to, whether you actually want to belong to the class of the rich or you want to belong to the class of what of the poor ones or the have-nots. Like someone was telling me that there's a difference between being rich and being wealthy. Now, when you see somebody is actually rich, it means that what you can be able to afford all the basic things that you actually wanted. You are not owing credit card, you don't need to borrow money and all those things. So you are comfortable. So when you say that you are rich, it means you are actually comfortable. Now, when you say somebody is wealthy, it means you are not spending your money. You are not spending your money at that level of what of being wealthy. So it's a food for thought there. So go and find out about that. So it helps people generally in a period of inflation, but on the other hand too, it benefits some group of people. And who are the group of people I'm talking about here? I am talking about those that are actually financially educated. So inflation is negative, but also inflation is a positive, is also a blessing. So what are the blessings which I'm going to discuss in this video? So at the end of the day, you'll be able to actually readjust yourself and fit into the system positively, as those people that inflation is actually favoring. So what are those people that inflation is actually favoring? Inflation is favoring those that are actually investors. You understand now? Investors. So in a period of what of inflation, investors will actually gain. We actually gain. Don't forget, I told you that there are two classes of individuals in society: those that are entrepreneurs and those that are investors. So if you are actually an entrepreneur or a business owner, it's a good luck, it's a nice thing, because in this period of inflation, there's every possibility you are going to be smiling to the bank. Then if you are actually an investor, you are actually investing or putting your money indirectly into the hands of of the entrepreneurs. And whenever the profit is what is being made, you are part and parcel of the profit that will be shared. So if you are an investor in a period of of inflation, if you have financial education in this period of inflation, is a good thing for you, because you are going to gain. So investors will gain in a period of inflation. So during this period, the middle class, are actually squeezed, while the investors are getting richer during this period. So if you're a middle class, if you're in the lower class and you don't have financial education, you are not an investor, you are not putting your money into where your money is actually growing, where your money is actually working for you, then you are going to feel the heat of the inflation. But if you are actually an investor and you have actually invested your money is going to be working for you while you are there, doing one or two things, not actually stressing yourself, not actually hustling, not actually feeling the effect of inflation, or the negative effect of inflation. And that is where I'm going to. You need to invest in this period of inflation by creating what I call a passive income, or creating something that will create extra money in your pocket, that at the end of the day, you'll be able to fund your lifestyle. At the end of the day, you will not feel the harsh effect of inflation. So this is the reason why financial education is very, very important. That you need financial education in a capitalist economy, because in this Nigerian economy, the system is capitalist, taken from the poor and given to the rich, taken from the have-nots and giving to those that have. So it is creating more opportunities for the rich and creating bad opportunities for the poor. So you need to decide now. So you need financial education. So you need financial education. Now, that does not mean that government is not working, effortlessly. Government is actually working tirelessly to bring inflation down by raising the interest rate, just like what I said before. That interest rate in the period of inflation will always be increased. And when there is an increase in interest rate in the country, it will affect every other thing in the economy. So those that bears the brunt in a period of inflation are the average man on the street, with no financial education, with no investment or anything, because everything is getting expensive every day for them. But if you are actually prepared in this period, you are going to make more money. And that's why I remember when I started my investment some time ago last year, and I put in some money. Before I actually invested my money, it was actually about 10%. Then it was actually increased to 11%. Then later on, it was actually increased from there. Now it's about 20 something percent. 20 something percent. So investors are earning what I call compound interest. 20%. Imagine if you're having 20% of your total income in a year that is given to you as an interest, whether there's profit or not. You are making money. You are making money for yourself. Now, I've said it before that if you're actually an investor, it does not necessarily mean that you have to be an active investor. You can be a passive investor where you put your investment in the hands of what? Of the professionals, and you are paid what I call a compound interest over the years. And you can imagine 20% every year, 20% every year for a period of maybe 10 years or 20 years. My brother, you don't need to work again. You are going to be safeguarded and you are secure. So that's what we're talking about now. So investments of these investment platforms or those financial institutions now are paying about 20% of what? Of your compounded, investment every year. So if you imagine if you're having 20% of your compound interest every year, and you keep putting money and money and money in this investment, you can imagine in the next 20 years, you don't need to work again. You retire yourself, you can retire and not work again, because at that level, you have created what? A lifetime of investment for yourself, where the money is now working for you. So the average man with no financial education will continue to suffer because things are getting expensive and expensive at everything. Now go and watch the rest of my videos. Now, despite the fact that things are very expensive every day and things are getting more intolerable or unbearable for the average man on the street, there are some things you can actually do for yourself, like cutting down on your expenses, cutting down on what you actually consume, like cutting down on those things you don't necessarily need, that is taking away money or creating holes in your pocket. So in this period of inflation, you discover that the wages is not catching up with the level of inflation, and that is where the problem is, where the amount of money, imagine this kind of inflation, some people are still collecting 30,000 naira per month. Oh my god, 30,000 naira per month. They will feed, they will wear, buy clothes, they will take transportation, they will take care of their dependents in the family and some other things. So in this kind of inflation, what do you think that 30,000 naira can actually do? It cannot do anything. 30,000 naira cannot do anything, but rather it's a suicidal wages. It is a suicidal wages, like declaring that person to be dead in this economic system. So so in this inflation or level of inflation, wages is not catching up, and wages is actually stagnant in this level of inflation that we are experiencing in Nigeria now. And that is why households are complaining. Price of goods are going up, but the wages is not going up. It is still the same thing. And that is why you need what? Something drastic to be done in this period, or else you are going to be swallowed there up. So the purchasing power of people in inflation is going to be affected. So there are ways to win in this period of inflation if you actually have a financial education. Recession and inflation, or whatever you might want to call it, create what we call financial opportunities for those that are actually prepared. If you are actually prepared, it will create financial opportunities for you. I can remember some time ago, I was talking to some of my colleagues that we went to the same secondary school, and all of them were actually complaining about the harsh economic reality. That was last year or so. And I was telling them that there are some certain things that you can do, that you can actually help yourself out of this quagmire. And at the end of the day, some of them feel that maybe I'm trying to brag or I'm trying to show off myself. No, it's not about showing off. It's all about knowing what is the reality on ground. And unfortunately today, most of them have not been able, though one or two of them actually got in contact with me and said I should do a video, with them, where I can be able to lecture them on what to actually do. So a lot of people are actually dying in silence in this economic situation, living fake life and living a flamboyant life, thinking that everything is going to be forever like that. If you are not actually prepared, you are going to be swallowed up. Because I've seen people, that are actually not prepared, that are old today, and most of them, it will not be a portion, that they are begging. Sometimes they will call their children will tell them there's no money, and at the end of the day, so I had the news of one that was even telling the neighbor that, tell my children that I've fainted, that I'm about to die. And funny enough, the children did not even respond at all. They didn't even bother. I was so surprised, because they don't have anything, because they don't have anything to offer. So you can imagine, somebody was telling me the other time that they went to their family, with the children, to actually went to go and borrow, begging for money before they could eat. The economy is not smiling at this period. There are some certain things that you actually have to do to rescue yourself from this level of inflation. Most especially, you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared yourself, because if you are not prepared, you might likely be what? Be swallowed up. So inflation, recession, or anything will create what? Financial opportunities for only those that are actually prepared. So what are the ways that you can actually do, or what can you do to actually survive this economic harsh reality? Number one is that you must not spend all your money, but invest your money. Don't spend all your money. Once you get that salary, even though it is a minute, or even though it's very, very small, even though that money is what is a minute, or it's not actually something that can sustain you, try and save something. And when you save something out of that money, try and invest that money at the end of the day. Don't use your 5 fingers to eat. Don't use your 5 fingers to eat in this economic situation. So don't spend everything. So you must not wait for things to go wrong before you actually take the right decision. So inflation for an investor means what? Investment. And when you say investment, it means what? That there's going to be creation of what? Of value. So value will go up in a period of what? Of inflation, because your asset will what? Will go up. Your asset will actually grow in a period of inflation. That's why today inflation in Nigeria, for those that are actually investing their money, they are getting a compound interest of 20% per annum. For most of for those that are engaged in what I call the passive investment portfolio, which is what I'm also doing at the end of the day. And the beauty of it is that when I started this thing, I was I was feeling, reluctant, and maybe I'm making a mistake. But today I'm very grateful. I'm not making any mistake. It's the reality. So every day, Monday to Sunday, I get paid, even though it is very small, but it is something at the end of the day. So it doesn't matter. So the higher the money you put into it, the more money you earn at the end of the day. So please don't allow this economic system to swallow you up while you're not prepared. So inflation will create financial opportunities. Inflation will create more financial value for those that are financially educated and those that are actually what? Investors. So during inflations, investors will build a lot of wealth and what? And more profit. Let's be realistic with ourselves. So in the period of inflation, investors, those that are financially educated, will build more wealth and what? And more profit for themselves, because at the end of the day, you will buy their product whether you like it or not. And when the profit is split share, investors will get their own part of the share at the end of the day. So it is either you keep complaining and complaining and complaining and screaming and fighting yourself, which cannot create a solution for you, but rather you must take a drastic action today and invest your money. So it's either you complain and scream, which cannot help you, or you decide today to make financial gains for yourself. So you need to know how the system works in the capitalist system to be able to make financial gain. And how do you know how the system works? Is by having what we call financial education. So those that will make it in this period of inflation are those that are investors and entrepreneurs. And don't forget that in this period of inflation, it will create a lot of millionaires and billionaires. Like the lectures I did last time, I said about 8,200 people are actually millionaires in Nigeria. And a majority of them, about 70% of them, you don't have up to 500,000 naira in their account. You can imagine that. But today, that number has increased from 8,200 now to something higher than 8,200. Because why? A lot of people are getting financial education every day. I was in a bus last time. I decided to enter a bus home, and a man was trying to impress a lady in the bus that he has a financial leverage that is making money for him. I was just smiling. To him, he was trying to, make the lady come closer to him so that he can be able to have a relationship with her. But that's not what we're saying. We're talking about what? The reality. We're talking about being realistic with yourself. We're talking about what? Making effort to make your life better in the future. So it's a decade of what? Of sacrifice that you have to make for you to be able to get there at the end of the day. So don't let the economic system swallow you up. It is now time for you to invest and have this financial education, because only those that are financially educated and are investors or entrepreneurs that will make money in this capitalist economy and in this period of inflation. On this note, I'm going to stop my discussion. If you have actually gained something, please subscribe now. To my returning subscribers, I say a very big thank you. And if you have not subscribed, subscribe now. And don't forget to share my videos to the outside world for those that actually need it, and it will help them at the end of the day. Till we meet next time, I remain your humble, loyal, dedicated entrepreneur, enterprising, innovative, pragmatic, inventive dividend owner. Thank you, and God bless you all. God bless Lagos, God bless Nigeria, and God bless the world. Bye bye, and thank you. Bye bye.